The World Cup is over, and football is so back. The top 5 leagues kick off within the next few days. La Liga probably kicks off today when you're watching this, and the Premier League kicks off next weekend. So we're going to be taking a look at the World Cup Best 11, which honestly I have no clue how half the players got in there. Now, up front we have Haaland, Mbappe, and Messi. Those are all pretty much a given. Bellingham, Rodri, Olise, also pretty much a given. Cucurella, Porro, don't like either of them, in all honesty. Pretty much a guarantee, though, because Spain won the tournament, and Pedro Porro had a pretty important part to play in that. Martinez and Upamecano. Don't know how either one of them got into the team. Upamecano, sure, he did better than he normally does, but that's not saying very much. And Martinez, he was like a midget version of Sergio Ramos on the pitch. I mean, he really did not provide very much in terms of good defending. He was just Enzo Fernandez on steroids and somehow didn't get red carded because, whole Argentina controversy up until that final game. And then you have Vozinha in the back. Vozinha was playing out of his mind, carried Cape Verde. He could be in the best 11. He could be in the fans 11. Doesn't matter. However, he's definitely one of the most notable performers in this World Cup, going above and beyond and single-handedly really taking his team through the group stage. Now, what we're going to do is start with a 4-3-3 because, I think it just fits for this formation, and do the fans 11 first. So, by my metrics, the fans 11 are the 11 players who had the most pop culture or the most mainstream growth throughout the tournament. And so obviously you have to start with big boy Vozinha. Vozinha went from I think 50k followers to 29 million. No exaggeration in that, probably higher today when you're watching this. Like I said, he was brilliant throughout the tournament, and not only that, he got himself a move away, Next up is big boy Erling Haaland. Now everybody's seen the Instagram is great because you can post anything and Erling Haaland will reply nice, or all of the AI memes of Erling Haaland sat in a chicken shop and getting scared of himself or blah blah blah. Haaland taking over YouTube right now as well, but definitely understands socials, and this guy went from 40 million to 72 million followers across all social medias, I believe. Now, next up, this is the only 11 he's going to get into this year, unfortunately, for Ronaldo fans. But Cristiano Ronaldo, already the most followed athlete on the world, I believe, at 600 million or something like that, gaining about 12 million followers across all social media platforms. So the growth is just a drop in the bucket because of how large he already is. However, it still cannot be ignored. This guy is inevitable, and the women love him, and so he's up there at left wing. Next up is Lamine Yamal, and honestly, I think a lot of the casual football fans had just discovered him. I think he gained about 15 million followers or something like that. Anyways, it was more than 10 million. And if you know ball, you know about Lamine Yamal. And if you just started watching for the World Cup, Lamine Yamal was a hell of a discovery. The controversy with the woman that he stole from some dude, anyways. There was a lot of talk about Lamine Yamal this tournament and him being Future's next prodigy. Now, next up is Jude Bellingham. Bellingham had a hell of a tournament, and honestly, I think most football fans already knew about Bellingham. However, their girlfriends and their wives discovered him throughout this tournament, and so there were a lot of edits about Jude Bellingham, and most of them not about his footballing ability, even though he went and scored 7 bangers and single-handedly carried England through to the semifinals. Now, next up is going to be Richard Rios. Kind of in the same vein. I have no clue who he is even today, really, in all honesty. I don't watch very much of Colombia. However, if you have a girlfriend or a wife or whatever, she probably knows his name. And so, yeah, he definitely blew up. Next up is going to be Gilberto Mora, the breakout star from Mexico. I think was 17 years old coming into the tournament. Had a bit of a similar story to Vozinha, where, you know, almost no following or no social media presence prior to the tournament. And at 17 years old, in the span of a couple days, he went to the tens of millions. Yeah, breakout star for Mexico, and he's a wonder kid for them. So keep your eyes out. I assume big things will be coming from him in the future. However, he's only making this team because of the social media growth, obviously. Now, next up is Michael Olise. Olise had a hell of a tournament, and the reason why he's making it into the Fans 11 is because it's been a while since a player has had the Neymar 2016 YouTube highlights and the TikTok highlights or blah, blah, blah. You know, the high-intensity, high-tempo music and the close-up on the footwork. And this guy was doing something right this year. I love Olise. I love watching him play. He's a pure 10, and people recognize that, and he had a lot of social media growth across the tournament. Now, next up is a cult favorite here, Tim Payne from New Zealand. Can't remember which YouTuber it was, to be completely transparent, but some YouTuber went and did research into the least notable or the least known footballer in the World Cup 2026. He decided that it was Tim Payne, and he launched a campaign to get him a whole bunch of followings. Now, obviously, that worked, or else he wouldn't be in this video. Now, the last two, actually, you can't enter. So, if I look here for Endrick, this little guy here, the Brazilian wonder kid and Real Madrid bench sitter, gained millions of followers across the World Cup, even though he actually had very little contributions. And Brazil didn't make it very far at all. Now, the last one is also another player that you can't find. And honestly, I don't know how this happened. I have no clue. But Maduka Okoye, the Nigerian goalkeeper, mind you, Nigeria did not even qualify for the World Cup, somehow went viral across all social media platforms, with people naming him the Nigerian Jude Bellingham, and yeah, really just glazing. This guy had more edits than I had seen for anybody else, and like I said, Niger didn't even qualify, which is a shame because Niger plays some beautiful football. However, yeah, every single girl that I knew was posting an edit of Maduka Okoye, and I don't know how they even discovered him, in all honesty. But yeah, that wraps up the Fans 11. Obviously, there's two gaps there. I'm going to edit it probably in post and throw a picture of them there just so that we have them. And then for the manager, you could argue that it's Didier Deschamps. You could argue that it's Carlos Queiroz. Or you could argue that it's Carlo Ancelotti, which is exactly what I'm going to do. Because the viral eyebrow raises, the Brazil late comebacks, even though Brazil did horribly in the tournament, by their standards at the very least, and they set the standards high, Ancelotti definitely had more talk about him than almost any other manager. Now, Deschamps is well known really in France, and that's about it. He's not the most entertaining manager for the fans. You don't really get that same pull that Ancelotti has. And Carlos Queiroz did amazing with Ghana until they went out, sadly. But Carlos Queiroz managed Egypt and was responsible for one of the worst periods of Egyptian football that I've ever witnessed. And so Carlos Queiroz will never make it into my 11. Ever. With that said, let's go ahead and do the best 11 for the World Cup. Now, obviously, you have Kylian Mbappe. Oh my god, my caps lock's on. Now, obviously, you have Kylian Mbappe up front, breaking the all-time World Cup goal-scoring record. This kid is inevitable, and the World Cup might just be his favorite stage. I don't know how he did nothing in the semifinals, but then he completely turned it on in the third place game. The next one, also one of my most bang-on players, Jude Bellingham. Honestly, I thought if England went to the finals, if England had won it potentially, Bellingham was getting knighted. I mean, he would have been the youngest man, or the youngest non-royal ever to be knighted. And with the way he was playing, man, honestly, he deserves it. Because without Bellingham, that England team is sorry. Like, it's really not all that. Next up, we have Rodri, the player of the tournament by FIFA's metrics, and honestly, probably the most influential player in the tournament by most football fans' metrics. To have a 6 that is that capable on the ball and that has a dual win percentage, or a dual win ratio that he has, I think winning 70% of his duels or more, just so calm on the ball. Yeah, this guy is class, absolute class. And following that is going to be the great Lionel Messi. Now, unfortunately, I was a little bitter when I recorded my last video at the World Cup, but Messi, I mean, he's a GOAT. Like, there's no two ways about it. This guy is inevitable, and he, at how old is he? This guy at 39 years old is still head and shoulders above everybody else on the pitch. Now, you might see him walking or blah, 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 but, you know, there's no other player that can do what he does at that energy output, or even at 10x that energy output. This guy just sees the game differently to everybody on the pitch. Next up is Erling Haaland, who had a great tournament. Norway obviously went out a little earlier than they should have. Well, Norway, they might have actually overperformed Norway. You could argue that Harry Kane should be in there because England managed to get third place. However, Haaland had more XG per 90 and more goals scored per 90 than Kylian Mbappe, who just broke the all-time goal-scoring record. So, when it comes to scoring, when it comes to being a striker, this guy is inevitable. There's no doubt about it. The player that I probably would have replaced him with, had it not been Erling Haaland, would have been Ousmane Dembele. And so I would have been playing Kylian Mbappe on the left, Ousmane Dembele up front. No, sorry. Ousmane Dembele on the left, Kylian Mbappe up front, Lionel Messi on the right. But I didn't want to make this team too French. And that is because Olise is the next player coming in. He's obviously not a box-to-box. This guy's a 10, and he's a pure 10. But the most assists in one World Cup at 7. This guy was playing out of his mind, and he definitely deserved this spot in the best World Cup in the World Cup best 11. Now, like I said, Cucurella, I hate this guy. Probably all to do with the Cucurella, Haaland de Tremble chant that came out a couple years ago. But you have to give him his flowers when it's due, give him credit where it's due. And yeah, this World Cup, he was by far the best left back in the tournament. At right back, once again, it's going to have to be another Spanish player, and that is Pedro Porro. Now, Pedro Porro had a late start to get up to speed in this tournament. However, given his contribution in the final especially, it's hard to argue that he shouldn't be in there. Not only that, but the other right backs in the tournament just weren't all that great. You could argue maybe that Hakimi should be at right back. Morocco did quite well, but Hakimi also missed a couple sitters, which had he scored them, Morocco would have been in a much better place. So, there he is. Now, the last Spanish player in my 11 is Pau Cubarsí. And this player, I have no clue. This was my biggest problem with the actual best 11 that FIFA put out. I don't know why, but they put Aymeric Laporte, and Pau Cubarsí as a teenager was really the heart of that defense. And Cubarsí did not get his flowers when it comes to the World Cup best 11. In my opinion, he might just be the next best defender in the world after Van Dijk. And if he's not today, then it's a couple of years until you're making the Kubarsi Van Dijk comparison, maybe a Kubarsi Maldini comparison, because this kid is class on grass. And next up is a controversial one. The next two will be controversial. I apologize in advance. But yeah, if you look at Laporte, like I said, I can't really put Laporte in, given that Kubarsi as a teenager was the heart and stone of that Spain defense. Then you look at Upamecano, who was in the World Cup Best 11 official team. I don't know how. Upamecano's never been a good defender. And so I arrived at the only logical conclusion an Egyptian could come to, and that is Rami Rabia is the best center back out of the whole World Cup. I already knew Rami Rabia's class. However, this guy reminded me of Puyol in early 2000s, and he was really the heart and soul of the Egyptian defense. As far as Egypt made it, and as heartbreaking as our loss to Argentina was, I think without Rami Rabia, we could have gone out in the group stages. I mean, Rami Rabia, every time he came onto that pitch, he was a man that grabbed everybody by the balls and told him, you need to get in line. And his effect, his influence cannot be overstated, in my opinion. And now we go on to the last player in the tournament. Now, if you know anything about Egypt, you know why I'm putting Mustafa Shoubir over Vozinha. Obviously, Vozinha had an incredible tournament. But Shoubir was the best 11 goalkeeper for the group stages. And Egypt made it further than Capo Verde. And I believe Capo Verde conceded more to Argentina than Shoubir. So I have no clue why he's not getting his flowers. Because Shoubir saved us on more instances than I can remember, and this guy gave me joy that I haven't had watching Egypt. Just a sense of security that I haven't had watching Egypt in, I don't know, 10 years since we had Essam El-Hadri. Now, Mustafa Shoubir came out as prime Neuer, really. I mean, he was that guy. He was drawing comparisons to Essam El-Hadri, and if you know anything about Egyptian football or African football in general, you know that El-Hadri was known as a wall that just doesn't concede. And he was moving like a cat, saving us more times than I could count, and for that reason, he is my number one goalkeeper. Now, that is it for today. Let me know how badly you think I got it. Let me know what changes you would make, what your best 11 is, and I will see you guys in a bit. Peace.